Hello guys, welcome to Khidki. So Khidki is an initiative by MIT ID by the students of animation design and our alumni. So my name is Aniket and
Yes.
today we have our presenters Arvind and Nikita. So without further ado, I'll just switch over to them.
Mic is on, right? You're actually showing.
Yeah, you can go now.
Okay, hi guys. One second. It's a bit of lag. Okay, it's a bit of lag. It's just lag, yeah. It's nice to meet everyone, and we're really excited to present today at Khidki. Um, what we wanted to discuss today was the question I think most of us have as students is, and some of us even as professionals, is whether we should specialize or we should, have uh, do a generalization where we try and learn a little bit of everything. So I think because this is something that everyone wanted to know about, we decided to have a discussion on this. Before we start the discussion, I'll just give a quick introduction. I'm Nikita,
Can we
and
just give the presentation?
yeah,
Um, so we start the presentation now, right? And come on.
Yes, we can see the
can you,
presentation now.
Yeah, just go full screen.
yeah,
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 can you see our entire screen?
yes.
yeah.
Okay, great. So, just introducing ourselves, I'm Nikita. I'm the art director at Totem and also a co-founder. This is Advent. He is the creative head at Totem, and he supervises most of the projects which happen here. We both, as you guys must be knowing, are alumni of MIT Institute of Design in animation and filmmaking. We started after graduation. We freelanced for a bit, did a couple of projects here and there, 2D animation projects, illustrative projects in character design, pre-production. Advin worked with Glitch for a bit. I worked with Studio Exoris. Both of us interned at Studio Exoris. Then I worked at Reg Animation, which was based in Nashik at the time. So we worked with like a couple of studios, and after that we freelanced. And when we realized that we have, we'd want more creative control over the kind of work we do, and we wanted to work together. We wanted to work with like-minded people. We decided to start Totem in 2015. As Totem, we've worked with various brands and agencies, corporates, and NGOs. We've also produced a couple of independent short films and independent content, but not a wide area of work. These are some of the short films we produced. Paper Planes is currently in production. We have produced Crossing, and it is traveling to film festivals as we speak. Banoni Soch was completed in 2018, and that also received good response. It's a commission film for Oxfam India on gender equality. These are some of the commercial projects we've produced. We've worked with various brands like Puretta and Swiggy and Runway Kit and a bunch of brands. You can have a look at our website later. I don't want to elaborate much on that. Before we start the conversation, we wanted to ask everyone a few questions.
Yeah. So, hi guys, this is Arvind, and so we have taken this topic mainly keeping in mind the aspiring animators which gonna join the field. Maybe maybe you are already in the field, or maybe who will be joining in future, or the current student at MIT. Mainly because this started as an MIT ID alumni and joint collaboration thing. So even though it's a public thing, so whoever is probably can benefit from it, that's great. So before we get into the topic, we wanted to understand from you guys, as you must have seen on the screen. So we wanted to know how many of you have this question of have had this thought before, whether they should specialize into one discipline, or they should just have like a diverse portfolio. And the second thing I wanted to understand from you guys is how many of you know what kind of work you want to do as an artist. Like, since I mean, it's a vast field, and we are all in this for the art, I'm sure. So if you are aware of it, if you're conscious of what kind of animation designer or as an artist you want to become once you graduate or when you have your career, etc. And the final thing is, third thing you want to ask is, it's just about the kind of workplace, or what is your dream job basically, the studio you would want to be in, be it international, and you're asking this mainly from like no constraints basically. If you would have
Wait, Arvind, people are saying the stream got like they're saying it stopped suddenly. Wait, let me check what's happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, if there's some technical difficulty, we'll I think just pause it a bit.
Yeah.
Just let me know when we are back on, so we'll continue from there.
Okay, yeah, it's coming now. You can start.
It's coming? All right. Sorry. So, okay, we are back live on. So very quickly, these are the 3 questions. They are also in the chat box. If you guys, whoever is interested or have you had these thoughts, can you just put your answers there? We'll probably get back to it later on, because we have sort of analyzed this whole, looked at it from different angles, and we want to understand student perspective or aspiring animators perspective, and we'll get back to it later. So for now, we'll just continue with what we have for you guys, our thoughts we'll share on it. Nikita, I think.
Yeah, we'll continue, but just please type in, your responses to these questions, because we want to get back to it later. So yeah. So let's start. Basically, let's start with what is it to be a generalist? A generalist is someone who has a diversified portfolio, someone who has a good understanding of the overall pipeline of what goes into an animated production. They can be doing, you can be doing a basics of, you can do a basic storyboard, you can do character designs, and you're probably versatile in 2D animation as well. Or, maybe if you're in 3D, you could be a 3D generalist. That's someone who knows modeling, rigging, animation, all the different things which go into 3D production, but you may not know them, in depth. It's just like, you know a little bit of everything, and you know it well enough to maybe help out with the project. Being a generalist is really good for small teams, for creative agencies, and even smaller studios, mainly because smaller studios have they take on limited number of projects because of their bandwidth, and because of that they prefer artists who can multitask or be can easily switch roles and be on different projects together. It's also really good for people who want to freelance, or people who want to make their own independent films, because you can supervise the entire pipeline yourself and you don't need any help on it exactly. But what happens with this is that it definitely there'll be a limitation on the kind of quality that you're producing as an independent professional. So broadly speaking, a generalist is someone who knows little of everything, like a jack of all trades, but doesn't have in-depth knowledge or expertise in any one particular discipline. Being a specialist, on the other hand, is someone who knows the basics of everything, but has like a lot of experience in one particular department. Something like maybe a storyboard artist or a visual development artist, character designers, prop designers, character animators, maybe like even lighting artists, compositors. These people would be called as specialists because they know their craft in and out. They know everything that goes into that one particular discipline, and they spend like a considerable amount of time learning the technical and the creative conceptual aspects which go into creating these
right.
that kind of role.
Basically, if you're if you have more, if you can elaborate and you have in-depth knowledge of that field, and also it comes with a lot of experience, but at the same time, how much practice you have put into that particular craft, like over others. Obviously, if you have a limited amount of time, you might have to choose. So if you head into one direction, and trust me, like each of the animation fields are vast. Be it storyboarding, be it animation. Within animation, you have character animation. You also have effects animation. So if you really like dig deep, you'll probably be there's not enough time to really master something, but you can at least you can be an expert on it more than other people in your team, let's say. So in that sense, you are a specialist. Obviously, it doesn't mean that you're like a problem solver for everything or go-to person for everything, but you definitely have more experience in that in your area, in your domain, than the other people. Similarly, you'll be collaborating with other artists who are in other departments. So they will be respectively master of their own own domain. Right. So so the thing is, so we talked about how being a generalist, it's if you want to become an independent filmmaker, let's say in the future, or if you want to create projects end to end, like suppose you want to be a freelancer, you want to have that freedom where you can work from anywhere. So, and also because when you're freelancing, the projects that come to you might not be always the same unless you're very conscious of it. It can change in variety. Sometimes you're getting an illustration, tomorrow you're getting an animation work. It could also be a little bit of design work. So that kind of flexibility as a generalist is good, and you will be able to create projects much more easily and with flexibility. So what we wanted to also highlight is, for a specialist, if you have an individual skill set, how do you go about that? So the answer is very simple. See, animation, and since this is MIT is a design college, it's a collaborative field, right? Any design process, it's collaborative. You're working with a lot of people, and everyone bring their kind of knowledge to on board, and it's a lot of feedback, a lot of bouncing of ideas of each other, and then with that collaboration, anything is made. And that is true for animation filmmaking as well. So I mean, there are multiple departments. Like if you have seen any even big budget animation film or even a 30-minute animation film, you will see there are so many people, like hundreds of people have worked on it in different departments. Like we said, whether it's lighting, animation, or like even compositing or music, sound, which is generally in at least in animation, when we are learning, it's not covered that much, but it's a huge part of animation process. And the sound people and the music composers, they have their own kind of own learning to go through.
Yeah.
Right. So that's how you can, even if you are as an individual skill set, you can contribute. In fact,
it can end up with a much better project in the end, actually. So
right.
Yeah. So coming to like which is better, I think like everyone has this question at some point, whether it's something your skill sets is something you should probably get good at everything, or like having your options open. Like okay, like when I graduate, should I be having a diverse portfolio which shows like pre-production skills and 2D animation, and I should be a good illustrator, I should have good color work. Or should I, okay, I want to be a storyboard artist, or I want to be a 2D character animator. So should I just, have only like good shots, good character animated shots? So I think this is a really good question, and honestly, it took us also a really long time to figure it out. And to be honest, there is no like one answer for it. So finally, like choosing the two paths is a personal choice, and that choice it's completely dependent on one's own priorities, like what is more important to you as a person. We would definitely now dive in a bit deeper and give our take on it and our opinion, and we'll make a case for it. And we'll also answer like another question, which is what does the industry demand at this point of time? And we'll talk about the Indian animation industry as well as the global animation industry.
Right. So yeah, so when I think what Nikita said, like it's a personal choice, but we are not going to leave it on that. I understand. So we wanted to make it helpful for the students and not leave it at like, okay, you decide your own career and this whole talk is not fruitful. So when you're saying it's a personal choice, what we mean is basically it depends on your end goal, right? So your end goal dictates what kind of artist you will be, whether which industry you'll be working in. Like again, animation it's really vast, and it's just so much, like it's being applied in different fields, like vastly different from each other. So what kind of artist you want to be will dictate how, whether you should specialize or you should have sort of all these tools of trades in your toolkit. So at that point, from that perspective, it's definitely to individual your opinion, but at the same time we have our own thoughts on it, which we'll share, and we'll take you through it, and we'll sort of try to explain you why we believe it's a good way to go, which is heavily dependent on, since one of the reason why we're doing is because after 5 years as students, we have also spent like almost 5+ years now as industry professionals, or as a studio. So we believe that we have sort of, like, if not the entire picture, but we have sort of bits of both sides, so we can now compare and see whether whatever we believe as students still holds true. So we'll also explain what industry demands, and I think then it will become more clear. So this is what we meant, like, what is your end goal? So if your end goal is, if you are a kind of person who wants to be involved in if you like to put your hands on almost everything, and you be actively involved in all processes, then definitely, like, being a journalist will definitely help you. For some people, they really enjoy being on the shoot, being part of the script, being part of the music team, all that. And like we already mentioned, that as a freelance independent work professional also, it will really help you.
And I think by being part of, we don't mean just being part of the team and watching everyone work together. We mean like being actively involved, and like actually doing the work which goes into every department. So like if I'm probably done with after the script, if I'm done with storyboards, I will probably immediately start with character design, and I probably wouldn't I would actually physically be designing characters, not just like watching, like, collaborating in terms of concepts, but like physically working on every department. If that is something I enjoy, then probably like being a generalist is, good choice for me, I would say.
Right. See, one of the reasons why we have taken this topic is we understand how kind of conflicting it is, because as an artist, you really want to have like as many experiences as you want. You really want to be part of, I can understand, and we can relate with a lot of people who will see something new and they want to do it almost immediately. It might be completely different. It could be like working in a wood workshop, or seeing somebody doing a pottery, and you immediately think that, oh, even I want to do it, because that's how we are. So we understand how difficult this making this choice is, whether you should be part of everything or you should like sort of channelize your energy onto one goal. So, and that's the reason why we took it. And just to for the people who are watching, if you have any questions, you can throw in even in the chat, even during the talk, and we'll get back to it later. But we have also, while we are doing it, maybe it seemed like we are racing through it. We want to do it quickly because we want to give more time for Q&A. So we definitely want to get to know your thoughts, and if we can answer some of them, then great, right? So yeah. So on the topic, for example, so now securing a job, it's a huge thing. It's nothing. Like it's a very important thing when you're starting your career. You want to be financially secure and in other senses. So if that's your priority, like for whatever reason, then again being a journalist will definitely I would say up your chances, because you have like a variety of skills under you. You can probably take on different roles. So like I said, as a freelance artist, there are different the jobs requirements keep changing. So you'll be probably better equipped to quickly switch between, like if you're illustrating a book cover, tomorrow you're illustrating something else, or you're doing some animation today, etc. So that's definitely there. That doesn't mean that being a specialist will not have any kind of scope of work or job opportunities. That's not what I'm trying to say. You can also, as a specialist, at the same time you can work in one of the major studios which have dedicated departments. So yeah,
I think in our industry, it definitely like having a diverse portfolio definitely increases your chances of employment. But that's, like he said, it's not to say that specialists find it hard to get employed.
Yeah. So the main question why we wanted to come to this is like, you know, from an industry point of view, I think that is very crucial. And a lot of students that we have interacted with the past had this kind of eagerness, or even a little bit of you know, a little anxious to know how the industry functions. And you know, it's also, I can understand it's a little intimidating at some time. So that's really like, you know, at the core of it, I think. And we felt like we could probably answer it. You want to take it?
Yeah, so I think so there in the global animation industry is like really vast. It can be applied to like multiple in other industries. It's used in advertising and commercial, you know, in kind of commercial, various commercial projects. It's applied in medical industries, education, entertainment. So the industries themselves where animation is applied is very vast. The Indian animation industry is limited actually. I mean, it does provide animation services in terms of, you know, VFX is outsourced in India. A lot of VFX, a lot of 3D production is outsourced here. There's a lot of 2D work also happening, but not on a larger scale. It's more for independent corporates or used in explainer videos or, you know, small scale advertising, motion graphics. But yeah, this is also slowly changing, using 2D as, you know, a good medium to have a 2D video as the face of a brand is also something that people are becoming more open to now. So yeah, that is another thing. And as far as original content is concerned, the Indian animation industry unfortunately has a very bad reputation for creating good quality original content. Whatever we've seen, it's very mediocre, or I think now we are seeing like definitely we are seeing better quality of content coming out, and
it's definitely shifting a lot. It's not to say that, I mean, we don't have original content, and there's some really good one out there. But you know, like I mean, it has taken a while to sort of pick up.
Yeah.
And firstly, the first challenge is to produce enough content, and then you can also focus on, once you have enough of this and you have enough experience, you can probably focus on the quality of it. Like it rarely happens that you know, you make the first thing and it's amazing. So we definitely have a shortage of it, but at the same time,
it is slowly shifting now.
Yeah. So, but the reason is when you ask that, you know, what does the industry demand? It's like really the thing is it's also constantly changing. So now, as students, you also must be hearing about a lot of new tech that is coming in. You know, you have gaming industry, which is as you know, vast as animation in itself. You also have what do you call it? One second.
Cat is distracting. I'll just give it a second.
Yes.
You continue.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. So basically, it's like it's changing fast. Like it's changing so rapidly that, you know, before you can catch on to it, you have VR now, and you have like gadgets like Oculus. People are painting within Oculus. They're creating films within Oculus. So it's so fast that, you know, it's really not a question of like how do you cope up with that, because and especially that this is something we feel like as a generalist can be really challenging. If you want to diversify your portfolio, there is really no limit to it.
Yeah.
There's so much to cover, right? So that's mainly it. And like Nikita said, Indian animation industry has still a lot to offer. We have like VFX, we have 3D animation being used in architecture, you know, like real estate and all these kind of things. So it's really, and they are all kind of you know, good fields in their own. But definitely we have like a kind of a handful of, I wouldn't say like not enough, but like a handful of animation studios which are producing original content and original content full time. You know, like it's not not that you're working on some projects and you know, after 3-4 years to create one IP. What we mean here is that
studios who are dedicated to produce original content, as you know, as full, like I think Om Animation is doing that. Like Om Animation is producing the series called Andy and Pirky, which is on Pogo, and that's like a full-time series which they have created from scratch.
I mean, there are a lot. I mean, there are sort of big players in this, which is like Maya is there, and there are some other studios. Like even you must have seen Lumpwood by Web Studios. So these are all good content. But like I said, it has taken a while. So even though we have some early successes right now, it will still probably take some time before we can become, or any of the studios can become, dedicated content creators and not depend on, let's say, advertising or other channels of revenue to sustain, as a business. And that's the key factor here, because what we have seen is like a lot of animation studio or creative agencies come animation studios which are, they have some sort of division for animation, but they are primarily an advertising or marketing, at least an aid to that. What happens there is that because advertising projects are very short-lived, okay, they're changing very fast. Like they max to max a month, you'll have one project running which might have a requirement of, let's say, stop motion. Okay, and once that project is over, the next project demands some 3D animation. So now you are basically, the same team is essentially going to work on that, unless you hire maybe one or two consultant or one or two experts for that. But primarily the same team is going to work on stop motion project. Next project will be 3D animation, and or maybe a 2D animation, or if you want to try some small content basically. So that's where the whole kind of when we say the demand of the whole demand and supply, if you look at it from that point of view, animation as an industry, the demand is such that you need to be adaptive and you need to be flexible. And because the projects are short-lived, you're working with a tight team, so you want people to handle a couple of things at the same time who can quickly switch role. Today, if I'm not there, you should be able to fill into that place, or if I'm busy with some other project, somebody else will fill into my place. So in that sense, and this is I think what we said earlier also, that Indian industry so far definitely has, I wouldn't say favors, but definitely has more requirement for a generalist. So it's
and
like,
I would say this is also because that's, I mean, in defense of studios, that's where the revenue comes from. So it's not like, it's viable for them to produce original content full time, at least as of now, because there are a lot of other players involved in original content production, not just studios. Like there are producers involved, there are channels involved or networks involved. So I think that's why, we are where we are right now, and it's constantly changing, like I said, especially with OTT platforms coming now. It has definitely given a lot of creators opportunities to create original stuff and at least pitch and see where it goes, because even audiences have more access to content now.
right.
So
So at this point, mainly the point we want to drive is that like original content, which is still less in Indian animation industry, but at the same time, when you look at global industry, how they are doing differently is you have not that like there aren't any international studios which are not working with advertising. There are a lot of creative agencies which do which are sort of bringing the animation or 2D animation back into scene, with a lot of like commercial work with heavy 2D animation, which is like very, very high quality, very good. But at the same time, you also have like plenty of, I would say,
dedicated animation studios.
Like I mean, all the big players you already know, I'm sure, DreamWorks, Pixar, and there are so many others which are not as big as them, not like giants, but they're still dedicatedly creating content, whether it's a series, whether it's a short film or a feature, or they're kind of part of these bigger projects. Like DreamWorks will sort of hire 2-3 smaller studios.
You have Tycho House, you have Line Animation, you have
Right.
What's our Australian studio?
Animal Logic. Yeah. So these studios, what happens there is you have like a constant content being produced, like a full-time thing going on. So what they do is they create a more efficient pipeline by having these kind of dedicated departments. So and it's like you're not constantly task switching. Like if you're not it's not like today you're storyboarding it, tomorrow you are expected to do some animation scenes. That's not what happens.
Yeah.
So in how this benefits the artist is like they can really focus on their craft, and the ultimate, like the overall, this also increases the quality of the final product, be it a film or whether it's a series. The writers can just focus on writing part. in a lot of, for example, for Totem, so we have a very small team, and we are also struggling with this question and this kind of topic. So we at times here we find ourselves brainstorming on something, trying to create some write up for a content. At the same time, we are also doing some production work. So it is really like it's a challenge. It's not like a it's not like a shortcoming, but it's a challenge that we as an Indian industry are facing. But we everyone is working towards it. So, but on the contrary, like the bigger animation studios where the content is being produced full time, they can do it dedicatedly, and they can allow their artists to just sort of channelize their effort and energy into one thing, and that really shows. I mean, you can see any of the big budget feature films coming out. They're so good, not because there's being like money poured into it, but there are so many people, like so many amazing artists from different departments working together, be it a technical department or be it like a creative department or a sound, so and it shows in the final work. And this ultimately, like in the long run, it helps everyone from right from the company to your individual artists or the employees of the company in all senses. I mean, like
Yeah, so I think primarily even in the global animation industry versus Indian animation industry, there is definitely like more opportunity for specialists as well as generalists. So I mean, when it comes to like having a secure job, if you think of applying abroad, then as a specialist, then there are definitely more chances that people would need specialists than probably in our country. So I think what it boils down to is, us as artists, what is the kind of work that we want to be doing. And I think that is a pretty simple choice if you boil it down to its it's essential. And I think this is the most crucial thing that we wanted to discuss.
Yeah, I think we haven't answered the previous question first. So what we want to do is, this is we had asked a couple of questions in the beginning, and this I think is true for most people, is that they really want to work in like on some good quality content. They want to work
do you want to go through what people have answered?
Yeah, we'll take a quick look at if you have got any responses of the first questions that we have asked.
Aniket, can you just see if anyone has responded to the questions?
We'll just take a quick 2 minutes here, and we'll just take a look.
Most people have asked more questions like other than that than answering.
Okay.
So here Pari asked, like she wants to work for animation. Like I want to work on animating, but I don't want to be confined to it, and I enjoy a lot of other aspects of production. So
Right.
yeah. So
Okay.
like that's her question.
Okay. So we'll take all these questions in Q&A. We just want to understand if people have had these kind of questions before. At this point, okay, we'll share where we are coming from. For us, as a student and whoever we have interacted in the beginning, initially everyone has like a kind of a big dream of working on big budget kind of feature films or heavy like good quality animation work, series and all. I mean, you prefer less for I mean, as a career option, if you have to do some other freelance work, it's fine. But initially, you definitely want to work on some kind of feature film work at, given the option, we would prefer to work at Disney or DreamWorks. If for some reason, if we can't, that's a different case. But and you can also
I think like since we were hoping that more people would like let us know what their dream job would be, like because we wanted to get an idea of if there were no constraints and no limitations, what would be the ideal scenario that you would want to be in as an artist.
Yeah.
And
I mean, even if now people can answer this question quickly if they can see it. If you had absolutely no constraint, if you could have any job or any position in any of your desired industry, which studio would be probably, whether it's in India or abroad. Anything.
I think like a lot of us would even hesitate to answer this because we kind of limit ourselves into the reality of what we think we are capable of doing, and like I think that we should just I think it's very important to recognize that, like recognize what you really want to be doing, and be very focused about that. So
for us as a student, it's always been. I mean, somebody said Ghibli.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
That's
Exactly.
great. That's great. So this is actually true for. It's genuinely we believe it's true for almost everyone who comes to animation.
Someone said Ghibli in the comments too.
Right. So exactly. So I think this is as when you talk about aspirations, when you talk about what your dreams are, what your goals are, everybody starts with they want to work at either Pixar or Disney or DreamWorks or one of these Ghibli studios or these really the kind of content that has inspired us, right?
I think like the kind of when you join animation, like when you take a animation course, like you join because you've seen really whatever you've grown up seeing, whatever you really have enjoyed, that is what you want to become a part of, right?
Yeah. Even though I mean, if you want to think about it this way, you can also see the kind of artists you follow on Instagram. You'll most likely will be following some character designer who's really good at character design, or somebody who's really good at like visual development. So I mean, that shows that you definitely want to either produce that kind of content or be in their shoes. So, and that is something truly what specialization is. It's not like just doing one thing, but people who have really put all their time and energy into one craft, and that's how they become that good.
Okay, so, I think like even Joan says, I genuinely wanted to be part of Studio Ghibli. It's just so beautiful. Pari says she would like to be a 2D animator with job stability.
Okay.
Malvika says to create independent animated films. So I think Aryan says to create popular fiction content, to both write it and art direct it.
Right.
So I think we have like a mixed bunch of people here. Like we have people who want to create actually a lot of people who want to create their own IP and create their own content. We also have people who want to be part of bigger studios and do like much bigger, be part of bigger projects and more well-known studios. So I think for us, like personally, for me and Advin, when we joined animation, speaking for myself, I definitely wanted to work at a bigger studio like Ghibli, and I wanted to work with Disney and Pixar and DreamWorks, and I think all even Cartoon Network. Like I didn't know if they had a studio, but I think they do a lot of work with other smaller independent studios. But yeah, that's the kind of work I wanted to be doing. I just didn't know what all would be involved into getting there. And as we are introduced to animation, like there are a lot of disciplines and departments that we're introduced to, because it's quite overwhelming. We understand the entire pipeline. You see that there's storyboarding involved, and then there's an entire pre-production department which involves storyboarding and visual development, character design, backgrounds and layouts, color scripts, and then there's production, which is like 2D and 3D animation. So it was just really overwhelming when we were as students, because there was a lot of things which were all really interesting, and you just had to learn everything really quickly. So.
And like I mean, one more thing where we said from an industry perspective, we wanted to also kind of reason with it or justify it or kind of explain it from industry point of view is this is another way we can look at it. Like what kind of industry you want us to become, like as an Indian animation industry. And for us, this is a question of like we definitely wanted to go into more original content, doing like plenty of content, and at the current time zone, it's basically. For the most part, is functioning as a servicing industry to whether it's advertising, whether it's marketing. So that even for the shift to happen from that to going developing original content full time, and at a kind of volume that we really want to, for if you want your peers or your family members to watch and like grow up with, that can happen if we have like more kind of specialized or more expert people. And when we are saying specialized, we really want to emphasize on it. Doesn't mean like we are not saying just do one thing and don't know anything about it, but have an in-depth knowledge and experience of it. So I think we'll wrap it up quickly, and then we'll go into Q&A, because we have a lot of like good questions which you want to get to. and it'll be more fun if we can have an exchange.
Yes.
Right.
And is
So-
it possible for you guys to turn on the camera for it?
Yeah. 1 second. So can you see us?
Make it full
Yes,
screen.
yes.
So we'll just leave the camera on and we'll have the presentation. Oh, okay. Sorry. You're seeing our screen. All right.
Yeah.
So just give me a second. Yeah. So right. So this is what we feel, and this has been true for us right from when we were students, when we were in college. We wanted to either be part of something like fantastic, something which has amazing storytelling, amazing work, and the kind of work we have basically grown up seeing. And even that's true for us even now. Like as an industry, we want to definitely head in that direction. We want more content to come out, and at the I know there's a lot of independent content also coming out, but that the volume you need it'll be possible only at a mass scale. I mean, when more bigger studios are coming in, which have the kind of capacity to do it full time back to back, and not as in, because independent artists can make one film and then you have to sort of go back to back foot and kind of sustain yourself. Even as a smaller studio, that's true for us as well. But bigger studios which have the kind of potential, they can definitely keep it rolling, and they can invest their time, their resources in it. So, but for that to happen, I think we'll need a lot more kind of specialists, lot more highly skilled, let's say, highly skilled artists. Okay, and you can't be highly skilled if you are like, imagine this: you have limited time in college, right? You have like 4 years, right? 3 years and 3 years, and you have like say 15 things to learn. And trust me, I think each field of animation, whether it's storyboarding, whether it's animation, if you wanna get into like lighting or doing FX animation, all of these fields like will take some time. So by the end of your 4 years or your 3 years career, you will only be able to either get really good at one thing, or you'll have like some kind of an experience of almost all of that, but maybe not something like that people can depend on.
So I think something we figured out, even while approaching this discussion, is like why, how can we approach this better? And I think this boils down to, finding what you're good at doing versus what you want to become. And
yeah, I think this is probably not related to the topic of whether you should specialize or you should become a generalist, but this is something we definitely, because we are doing it for the students, and I'm sure a lot of people are tuning in. So for them, this is something which is like kind of a crucial, you can call it a tip if you want to take it. It's something basically, like whether you should find something that you're naturally good at, let's say, or something that you want to do, but maybe you're not good at it in the beginning, but you want to become good at it, and how to become better at it. So, and these things, like initially we felt like isn't it the kind of same thing, but the crucial difference is basically getting into the not falling into your comfort zone basically. So what happens there is like when you are exposed to let's say talk about MIT. So there are like you will be exposed to a lot of different processes of animation. Am I right? And you'll be taken through all these different things, because again the objective is to introduce you to the field of animation, and you can't do animation with probably like just not knowing anything about other stuff. So you need to know all of that, but at the same time it does not mean that you just try your hands on everything and then see what kind of clicks with you or what you're good at, and then you stick to that, because that would be kind of getting into your comfort zone. What we would tell you with this basically you find your interest, definitely something that can click with you at a
inherent level, something that
what you like basically.
When you do it, you immediately feel you really enjoy doing that one thing. Like for me personally, like year is something which was introduced in third year, I think. Third year. I know, but I think the course was just like 1 or 2 weeks long, by which time, it was really late for me to realize that this is what I really enjoy doing, and I would want to spend a decent amount of time understanding, because I feel that storyboarding is primarily direction, and that's what I wanted to be doing. I wanted to be part of everything, like how the story is going to be told, where the camera work is going to be, how the shot direction, everything. So
for me, I think it was the other way around. So I kind of figured early on that I wanted to do animation before starting the animation courses. But I mean, with a couple of other friends, we started working towards it. We started like practicing whatever skill set will be required in order to animate. So luckily, we were sort of, I would say, well prepared to an extent before the animation started, and that made a lot of things easier. And then you can probably like reach further in a limited amount of time that you have in college.
Yeah.
And this has also helped me in a way that what we have realized that at some point of time, whatever you're choosing, if you're choosing it for the reason that you're good at it, let's say, I mean, you start let's say you start what do you say? Let's say you start stop motion for a so initially when you start stop motion, it's dealing with material, probably there's less drawing involved, or you can lighting is sort of, you can just when you light it, it kind of gives you physical light. So a lot of things are instantly can click, right? So it feels really good in the beginning. But if you're doing it because you think you're good at it, I think I would say just I'm not saying that's the wrong approach, just be conscious of it, that you're not doing it for that reason, because at some point of time, anything and everything will become, like, it'll get tough.
And I think what a lot of people get confused with is when they say, okay, I think I'm good at this, what they mean is this is easy for me,
Just be conscious of this, basically. Because and the comfort zone is something that you should definitely avoid, because like I said, whether it's 2D animation, whether it's stop motion, or if it's a 3D thing, if you think you're good at with software and you kind of pick the interface very quickly, and you think that, oh, I'm really hitting it off with 3D animation.
I'm technically really good.
Yeah, it could be with anyone for that matter. So I'm just throwing examples at you. So the point is, if you think for the early experience, and if you naturally have this inclination and you think, oh, this is the thing I should do, just be aware, because at some point it will get tough, and that point of time you will probably, if the idea was to do something which you're good at, you probably either switch or you'll have a really tough time. But if you start with something that if you think you enjoy, you want to do, but you have no idea how it's going to be, but you hit that pain point, but you'll push through it because you enjoy it. And so just be conscious of this thing. We just wanted to highlight this thing because this is something which is sort of related to when you want to specialize into something, or when you want to become really good at it. You will have to like put in good 3 years in it, right? And within those 3 years, after probably first year or something, you'll have a kind of that you'll hit the pain point. So if that's the way you want to go.
So I think we'll just, do you want to go back to the presentation, or we can just like refer to this?
I think we'll just so basically we'll quickly wrap it up. So we want to get into the question answer and have more exchange of thoughts and dialogues. So the last thing is, I think we wanted to also tell you guys how can you get there if you want to specialize, or if you want to be a generalist, you want to try everything. For I think trying everything, it's already pretty simple. You will be exposed to it, and as and when you're going, you will experience a lot of things. And
I think like if how you want to get there is probably like just plan ahead of time. Like if there is something that you want to be doing, if there is some studio you want to be working at as a particular specialist, just start working towards that goal right away, because time is like a very limited resource, and the amount of time which goes into specializing and learning one craft really well, it takes a lot of time. So just invest that time in that one skill set.
Right. Even if you want to, I think a lot of people do want to have experience with a lot of different things. If you are interested in that, definitely I would still say keep those 2-3 things, be conscious of it, and keep those 2-3 things going. Try more in that. And the other thing is we'll say is you definitely need to, whatever it is, even if it's whether you want to specialize or you want to have a bunch of things with you, definitely be good at it. Don't just touch upon subjects, because that is very likely to happen. Like we said, the time is very limited and there's so much to do. You might be just finishing let's say your assignments and move on to the next, and you will never get that time to go back and try more. So that's a very important thing that we want to say. Definitely don't limit to just the assignments. If you're a student or if you're an aspiring animator, definitely go more in depth. And even if you want to do multiple things, it will be a good idea or a good practice to sort of get to a level with one thing and probably then get into the other thing. Because and this is a very like amazing thing of design or animation generally is there's a lot of cross learning. So whatever you learn in one
Discipline,
field, one discipline, whether like for example, if you're a storyboard artist or if you're an animator, so if you know how to if you're a good animator, you also probably know about staging. So if
or
you
posing, which is very
opposite,
crucial
right,
in
opposite.
storyboarding.
And then you when you go into storyboarding, you have that knowledge with you. You know, like how the animation works, and more importantly, you know how to do it. So you can probably design better for it. Whether you're if you're a character designer, especially in 3D, like you have to you have to model, you have to rig, and somebody.
And it goes without saying that a specialist who is a character designer, it goes without saying that they need to have a decent understanding of character animation because they're designing characters for animation production. So I think like that's a given. Even if so.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that's pretty much what we can offer at this point of time. We like.
I'll also say our lens is also sort of skewed to
Right,
our own
right.
industry and the kind of work that we've been doing.
Right.
We, as Totem, we have been doing only 2D animation work,
Right.
and I just want to put it out there that we have very less experience or no experience in 3D animation
right.
or in gaming or in VFX. So
I mean, and plus like 5 years experience could be a lot for somebody, but looking at like somebody's 30 years of career, which it takes to master any craft, like if you are familiar with masters like Glenn Keane and all, they've spent their lifetime doing one craft, and that's how they're like that's why they're called masters basically. So compared to that, like obviously 5 years is a very very skewed time frame. So maybe we are maybe not the ideal people to answer these things or take up these kind of questions. But since we are, I mean, as alumni, thought this will be a good.
Whatever little experience we have, we wanted to share it with everyone.
Yeah.
So,
I think we can. That's mostly about it. We can wrap it up and let's move to the Q&A because there are quite a lot of. I can see some chats. I don't know.
There are a lot of questions.
Right, so we'll take it from the top and conclude it then.
Okay. So
right?
now,
This has been like how helpful it was, but
yeah.
Okay, so Yash Rathod here asks, do we have any game animation centered studios in India? If yes, do you have any idea of the skill set necessary?
There are a lot of game animation studios, but I don't know if they're Indian. They could be foreign animation studios, like if you look at Zynga or Ubisoft, or none of them are Indian, but they have a subsidiary in India. So
game also, like, it depends what kind of gaming you're talking about.
Yeah.
If you're talking about like now, even your iOS games, your mobile games are also quite popular. So if you mean that, then there are a lot of companies which are doing that. If you're talking about 3D PC games, which are more like RPGs and all, there are companies which do that as well. But then there'll be definitely less. Now, as far as the learning is concerned, there is you can, as an animator, you can go into working into games, because again, just like animation, filmmaking, gaming also is huge. There's 50% of it is, let's say, coding, but 50% of it is
art.
The art part, which is your animation, doing your concept art, doing your character design, and everything, which is I mean, exactly the same in animation. So if you're a character designer, you can easily design for games also. There will be maybe few tweaks depending on the technicality, but you will still have the 90% of the knowledge. So you can probably be an animator, and there are a lot of people who do that. By the way, they're trained as an animator, and then they're working into animation, gaming industry. Or if you're a character designer, you're working in a gaming industry. So I think that's
Yes.
Yeah.
So now Ravi asks, so being a generalist gets you jobs in smaller studios or low pay jobs, and specialization gives you a place in big studio or the high scale pay jobs. Like, that's the difference.
That's actually broadly true.
Yeah.
Mainly because, like I said, so when you're working with specialists, you're working with highly skilled professionals, right? So when obviously first one high skills will be, the fee will be more. So you need to definitely pay them more. But at the same time, what you're getting is a much more refined product. Like I said, in a limited amount of time, if I tell you as an individual, if you have to make a film, and like let's say a 2 minute film in 3 days. If you're working it alone, you will probably you'll be doing everything yourself, and the end product, if you're I mean a genius, it might be great, but more the better chance would be if there are like 5 people working together at it in their specialized departments. So the end product is really good, and that is how all these big studio can create these fantastic films.
Yeah.
It's not because, like I said, it's not just because of the resources they have or the money they have. It's the kind of skill or the artist they're working with.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Okay.
So broadly, yes, I think if you are a generalist, the chances are you'll not be working in a more dedicated. I wouldn't say big studios, but I would say dedicated original, like the studio which are dedicatedly creating original content. If you mean Pixar and Disney, then
Another
yes.
thing is, as far as the pay scale is concerned, like when you hire a specialist, they will also take a lot less time to do that one particular thing than a generalist would. And then taking less time saves you more money as a studio as well. So that's another reason why.
I think pay scale is sort of relevant. It could be the same thing. Like if one person is doing a job of 3 people, and even if you're paying them more, the economics could be same. But I don't know if that's not that wouldn't be like a accurate picture. But the end product will definitely be something.
Yeah, there'll be a difference.
That is something to look at, and that is something which kind of goes the long way. Like if you I mean, all the examples are there. Basically, all the big studios which are doing good stuff. It's very rare that one person or like a smaller team working on it, or either the time factor, right?
Okay. So here's another question by Ravi. Does the game industry needs a total different learning path?
I don't think so.
don't think so.
Again, the gaming industry is huge. Depends where sort of you're approaching it from. If you're approaching it from a tech point of view, then it's a totally different thing. But if you're approaching it from a creative point of view, it is. I think it's like it shares a huge kind of domain with animation, right?
But I would say like it's also the difference is like in animation filmmaking you are telling a story, and in gaming there are different types of games. So if you look at like your strategy games, like there's less storytelling happening than maybe an RPG game, like if you like Witcher or like Last of Us or any of these games, they have more storytelling as well besides the actual gameplay. So I think in those aspects there would be a lot of parallels. Like
I mean, there are still a lot of things that we are. I mean, not to we are kind of talking about maybe animation, but there's still a lot of modeling involved, lighting, texturing. All these things are common. Like the way you model for an animated film is pretty similar to how you will model for a game. Maybe, like I said, that there are some technically different parameters, like you need low poly models because you're uploading things and all this. So that is a different thing, but the initial process or the kind of the creative aspect of it is very, very common, I would say. So you can easily be trained in animation, and you can easily join a gaming industry from a creative point of view.
Yeah.
But technical is like the tech part of it is very, very different. I hope that answers it.
Okay. So now there's another question. There's another question by Atik. How viable is it to learn animation/modeling in VR?
Okay, animation/modeling. Actually, they're two very different kind of like they are specializations in their own. Anime. When you say animation, I mean like the movement of character, whether it's a movement of scene or objects, and modeling is purely creating those assets.
But anyway, his question is how viable it is. Like, what does he mean by viable?
I mean, I think what I'm understanding is what he wants to know how crucial it is, or if it's compulsory kind of thing. So in that case, I again VR also is a very I mean it's kind of it's a technology in itself. It's not a domain, I would say. It's a technology which can be held or which can help in animation, filmmaking. It can help in gaming. It is also being applied in medical fields, trainings, and all these things. So again, depends on how you're approaching it. If you're going into it as an artist, and for which role, like if you want to work for a company which is making VR games, and you want to become a modeler, you need to know modeling. If you want to become an animator, you need to know animation. But again, if you are like for example, there are writers also, by the way, in game studios who work on the story. So if you're just part of the industry as a writer, then all these things are not relevant. So I think the context is important in that case.
Okay, so now we have a question from Aryan. Would being a generalist stunt my professional growth in the later stages of an animation career, especially in terms of a pay scale? Or would I have to eventually specialize in something?
No, I don't think it would. It won't. No, I don't think it will stunt your career. It's a choice.
See,
right?
it's to say will it like permanently hamper it? No, but to if it will definitely slow it down. See, look at it. You basically have three parameters. You have time, you have your skills, and you have the, let's say, the goal, right? So now if you have less time, you'll have to put in more kind of have better skills to achieve that goal. Or if you have lesser skills, the time will take more, right? So it's like that. So if you have worked, let's say, as a for the first 5 years of your career, if you have worked as a specialist, and now if you want to make a switch to be working as a specialist visual development artist or a concept artist in gaming, you will have to kind of the time that somebody else has put into kind of mastering that craft in the first 5 years, you will have to maybe not 5 years, maybe you have already worked on it a little bit as a generalist, so you'll still have to put in those extra 2 to 3 years. So what I'll say is it's not going to completely hamper it, and it's why I'm saying is because a lot of artists who figure out what they want to do, very late in life, or they sometimes, some people never figure out. I mean, they just want to try a different thing, so they keep going from. So it's not gonna permanently like kind of disable you in any sense, but the time frame I think is irrelevant. So, and that is why if you have a very clear goal right from the beginning, and especially as students, if when you're joining a college or institution, if you have a certain goal in mind, it's ideal to sort out your priorities, especially if you want to have that kind of career right after college. Otherwise, you'll have to again kind of, what you say, on the job learning, and there are a lot of other factors in that. You might not get the right kind of work, all that. I hope that answers, Aryan.
Okay, so we have another question from Ravi. What are the hurdles in creating an IP/original content for a smaller studio?
Okay. Now there are like multiple hurdles. We are going through all of them. See, right from your team size to money, which is like obviously, like, see, ultimately it's an industry. We are into business. Money is a huge constraint. But one thing I will definitely point out is the talent, and that's one of the reasons why we are doing this. As a small studio, you can still create a good IP if you have good people to work with. You can take longer. For example, so a team of 10 people can create something in a year. A team of 3 people might take to do the same thing in 3 years, right? But at the end, they'll reach their goal. So it's not that they will not. The time will be more. But if you don't have the right talent, okay, then you can't help it. Even if you put more money in it, if you don't have the right kind of artists, writers,
if you
whatever.
put more money or time, you still won't produce good work because you need good people to work with.
Yeah.
So
these are all sorts of hurdles there. Not to going into the whole running a company kind of thing, because those are that whole aspect eats like half of your time if you're a smaller studio. Just like keeping the roof over your head takes, or keeping it going, basically, it's challenging task in itself, and it's challenging because it takes your time. So if you have, like, say, 8 hours in a day, you are basically only 4 hours will be available to do some work, and 4 will go into just managing things. So that's another challenge. And creatively, yes, like all that can take a creative toll on you, so that can be a challenge. I mean, there are just like a lot of hurdles.
I think we have to have another talk for that, Ravi.
I think that's like a very, it's just
so maybe some other time.
Yeah, IPs are like very basically you're doing something that you are basically putting your own.
It's mainly like a passion project thing. So you're putting in a lot of your own resources, which are unaccountable in terms of money. Like it's a risk you're taking on your own part with absolutely no returns, like no guarantee of any returns of that money. You're just doing it so that you can enjoy the process of creating something and hope that other people will also enjoy it. And also, yeah, I mean, there are definitely other perks, like people, like potential clients recognizing your skill sets and probably giving you work on the basis of what you've done. But I think the primary thing is to create good work.
Yeah. But I think there is a lot of silver linings there. There are a lot of tools to help you with that now. Like there are crowdfunding platforms, so you can create, instead of, if you have a small team, instead of going for creating an entire episode or entire season for something just by yourself, you can probably create a small section of it which you can either display, put it for crowdfunding. There are platforms, or
there are festivals where you can get funding for it.
There are meets where you can go. So I think there are challenges in their own, but there are also a lot of options if somebody is looking to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, now Vinod sir has asked a question. So, starting your own studio, what was the challenge and what you suggest someone to begin for a studio?
I think the biggest challenge for us personally was the fact that we are artists, and it's very difficult usually for artists to be business people, because there are a lot of things that go into the business side of. There's a lot of management that artists have to do, and I think that's very contradictory to your personality as a creative individual.
I think so. All the hurdles that we talked about creating an IP, those are there, and on top of that, you also have your creative baggage, right? You want to be creatively satisfied, and that not all the time, but quite a lot of time it might go it'll be an exact kind of in conflict with your business interest, because as a business you want to sustain, and it's about a certain momentum. If you're basically stagnant, then you're kind of failing. So if you're not growing at a certain pace, all those things. And why I'm saying why I'm bringing those hurdles from IP here, because this is our experience. We, coming from an artist or art background, we have a certain kind of expectations out of our work, the kind of work we want to do, and we definitely want to produce more original content, whether it's IPs or short format. So all those challenges coupled with the business aspect of it, obviously figuring out how much to charge for things and all. I don't think these are very big questions. You'll probably take a month, 2 months to figure it out, and maybe another 3 months to get comfortable with it, or a year. But the art part of it, I think it'll take 4 years to just learn what you're sort of cooking, right? So it'll take 4 years for you to become a good chef, and then maybe another 6 months to learn how to run a hotel or a restaurant. So it's like that basically.
Okay, so next question is from Shivam. As a 2D animator, how have you dealt with stunted growth due to overburning oneself?
As a 2D animator, how have you dealt with stunted growth? Overburning.
Overburning as in
you mean a burnout, like a creative burnout? Is that what he means?
I think that's what
I think that's what he means here.
Yeah. You want to take this?
Not really. I mean, I haven't done a lot of.
I think if I get it correctly, why he has specifically said
it's a loaded question.
Yeah, so I think why he's saying 2D animator specifically, I think it's because there's a lot of drawing involved. Okay, and that can really exert you, right? 2D animators, people who don't know about 2D animation, maybe watching this, traditionally how the animation started or was done was each frame is hand drawn. With now we have tabloids and all, but it was basically done with on paper. So it's a very lengthy process. But what you can do is, again, and this is something I'm saying from personal experience, and what we did is we started practicing those skills early on. Before we got into animation, we did our own research. And this is why
just make sure you got this question right. Shivam, are you saying that just type it out, but are you asking that 2D animation is very it causes are you saying it causes a burnout because of the amount of drawing that you have to do?
I think he can have a follow-up question if we are not getting it correctly. But if I get it right, that's why he's saying 2D animation, because it can be really, it's a task basically to just do a 1 second of animation. It's a task. So all I can say to that is basically like there's a saying that you sharpen or you prepare your tools, you sharpen it. If you have like 1 hour of work, you sharpen it for first 45 minutes and then 15 minutes when you get it done, right? But if you skip those 45 minutes and you just do it for 15 seconds, those 45 minutes will be not enough for you. Yeah. So there's a lot of practice and a lot of preparing yourself is there, and that's precisely why we are having this talk, so that you can sort out your priorities and start working towards it right from the beginning. So you'll hit those. It'll feel less taxing in that way.
I think I'd just like to mention something during Mriganka's talk. What I remember him saying is very applicable here. He said that if you get your fundamentals right, you will save a lot of creative years in your future. Yes. And I think that's like crucial to being anything, like being a specialist or a generalist. The fundamentals are the same for everybody, and the amount of time spent learning the fundamentals should be the most amount of time, I feel, because even if you want to be a specialist and you jump to the more complex or advanced subjects within your domain, if your fundamentals are still not strong, that learning will take a lot more time. Yeah. So spend like as much time as you need, but just try to get your fundamentals absolutely locked. And by fundamentals, I mean like your drawing, your fundamental drawing, like gesture drawing, your perspective, your anatomy, shape language, contrast, composition, those kind of fundamentals, like design and drawing fundamentals. So I think that can really save you from the burnout that you're talking about.
And it applies to everything. So if you guys have foundation years, right? So in foundation, you'll be taught compositions and all. So what we in one of the previous points we mentioned in the presentation is, like, don't be limited to your assignments. And this is true for almost everything you'll do in your career or in your college years. So if you're taught composition, don't just do the assignments and be limited with that. Go beyond, do more. In animation, you do fundamentals like in 2D, there's bouncing ball, there's kinematics. So do more of that. Don't do one assignment, will be limited, because if you have not done bouncing ball enough time, it will definitely, you'll not get stretching squash in your final animation. And that's why I think I can see why it can be really, really hard in that sense. So I hope that answers it. But if not, feel free to have a follow-up question on that.
Okay, we have a follow-up question from Binod sir. So he asked, do you recommend management in the course, at least business aspects of it and industry?
Right.
I wouldn't say so. I think as a course, as a part of the MIT course, it's difficult for me to answer that, but I would say maybe get an idea of how many students really want to start their own studio and probably have those courses for them, because it would eat into the time of the course for people who want to, like, if someone... you take it.
Can you repeat the question? Sorry. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so he asked, do you recommend management in the course, like the business aspects of it?
I personally no, because if you want to start a business, I think you should join a business school. If you want to become an artist, you can always make a switch. But see, you are probably starting an animation studio with the intent of doing some certain kind of work, I hope. And if that is the case, then you need to know your craft. Like I said, like you can't open a restaurant if you are not a chef, or it will not do well if you have an intention of owning your own restaurant, creating your own dishes, serving your own dishes, right? Similarly, if you're an artist, you want to create a content. If you're hoping that I'll open a studio and somebody else will create the content, might not work. So again, you have to be very clear about that. And if you are starting it from a artistic point of view, then I would strongly recommend that you get your learning part sorted out. The business part you'll figure out down the line. You'll figure it out, like, and within a year you'll at least get a hang of it.
Yeah, I think maybe Vinod, so what a course which could be included is probably costing, which I think you're already taking, like how to price art or how to price design and animation services. I think that's really important for students. Even if it's like a one-day course, I think you can cover it in a day.
See, to be honest, I'm just saying, if I'm speaking for myself, it doesn't really help, because the cost factor, even if you know what, let's say, an animation cost, as a fresher, you'll be in no position to charge it, or in a lot of times you might need the work, and again for whatever circumstances you might not be able to, in position to put your foot down. So you can know about it, but it's very different when it comes to actually applying it practically. And there are various there's such a variety of skill set. There's so much difference in skill set that you get in the industry. Like I'm sure, like for example, from the same batch, there are two kids who are passing out. One can have a very different kind of skill or at a different level than somebody else, and they both can't charge the same thing just because studio animation costs the same, or at least even if you charge it, the other person will not pay it, right? So the cost factor, knowing is one thing. It can maybe definitely help you with understanding the business aspect, but it's very different when you actually start applying it.
I think that application comes only with experience. Like if you get into it, I don't think that needs.
And like I said, so basically, if you are going into it from a business point of view, then rather be at a business school and collaborate with some artists in future, and the business, he knows the art, and then do it. But this will be sort of a mixture where half business, half art, and that has not been the case in our experience, at least. I hope that answers it. Sorry.
Okay, so next question we have: how do I tell stories that I believe people will love to watch, or such stuff should be out there, but at the same have a stable source of income?
That has not been the case in our experience, at least. Sorry, I missed that question. Can you repeat that?
Yes, how do I tell stories that I believe people will love to watch, or such stuff should be out there, but at the same time have a stable source of income?
So I think like a good way to go about it is you can be part of a studio or be employed at a studio whose work you like and whose work you enjoy doing, which will continuously hone your skills and give you the pay that you need to sustain yourself, and create your own ideas on, when you come back home, you can work on those ideas, develop them further. You can share it with colleagues, with your batchmates, share those ideas, get feedback on that, work on it, share it with your mentors. Ideally, it would be amazing if you could share it with artists who you admire and get their feedback on it. That would be like the ideal case. So, and then if they think that it's good, what you've created is good, they would probably help you find the right places to show it to or to pitch it to, and you can always take it forward from there. I think.
Yeah, so there are examples of it. Basically, even if you want to tell the kind of stories, if you have a certain idea of the kind of stories will be fun for people to watch or you enjoy them, does not necessarily mean that you just do your own thing and you can't work with a team. That is, I think, I just want to make that clarification. You can be working at a studio and still be able to tell your stories, because a lot of these studios, at least the big studios where you see good stories coming out of, they are very accepting of ideas.
Yeah.
I think a very good example is Steven Universe, if you guys have seen.
Yeah.
Right. So Steven Universe, the creator,
Rebecca Sugar. So Steven Universe is created by a Cartoon Network artist. Her name is Rebecca Sugar, and she created the show along with her brother, who's a visual development artist. And while she was at Cartoon Network working on Adventure Time, she was literally just doodling sketches of the ideas she had for Steven Universe. And the creative director literally passed by, saw the sketches, and he was like, "Wow, these are really cool. We can make them into a show. So why don't you develop it further?" So she actually developed an entire pilot episode on her own with her brother. Just two of them made an entire episode alone on their spare time while working at Cartoon Network. And when they saw it, they were like, "Yeah, we can put money in this and we can make it an actual show with, an entire team who you can supervise and head." So I think that's always possible. And I am giving a big example because it's Cartoon Network.
No, but the reason why we mention it is mainly because you have also stated about the stable income. So the thing is, if you're working on your own as a freelancer, at least for first couple of years, there is no stable income. You can ask anybody. It takes time to find your footing, have enough, know enough people to get a constant source of work, first of all, and then also getting the kind of work you want to do, and probably then comes the kind of work you want to put out there, right? So if definitely if a stable income is a priority, I would say work with a studio and try to, if the more you contribute and the more you share ideas, at some point in time it's likely to click. And if it's a good place and the people are good, they'll definitely be accepted. And there are enough examples of that. I think it's not like you can't get your stories out there.
Okay, so next question is by Shweta, and she asks, can we start as a generalist, but when we set out in the industry, and say later when we have a clear idea on exactly what we want to specialize in, and we turn into a specialist then?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
for
mean,
sure. I mean,
so this is what like we just want to clarify. This is not when we do this presentation or with this topic. It's not about like which is good and which is bad. There is no there in design or as an artist there is no bad route. Okay, it's just like just getting it there faster or having different priority. So we are coming in, we are commenting in it, or we are sharing our opinion from an industry point of view, or the kind of industry we want to see happen in India mainly, and also our personal kind of experiences as an artist. So if you feel like you want to experience all different processes, be free. And like I said, I think Aryan also had asked this question: will it stunt his growth? He had mentioned the like same thing. So it will not hamper your growth permanently. Even like there are a lot of artists which figure it out
much later.
much later
And there are a lot of artists which even specialize in one thing and then switch departments while they're in the job, and they realize, oh, I enjoy this more and I want to pursue this more. So
Yeah.
I mean, you can always, yeah.
All the learnings will definitely count. That's another thing which
Yeah.
no learning is like a waste or a futile. So it'll all add up to all the experiences you'll have. The only thing is
the
like
time.
while it's just a time factor, because it's like managing your time within 10 different things, or doing one thing. So if you have a clear goal of one thing, then great. If you want to try different things, feel free to do that. It's nothing like you can always specialize later on also.
Yeah.
Okay, so next question is from Malika, and she asks, while the OTT platform in India is growing at a crazy rate, it's not created a place for animated content to grow much. Do you think there is a scope for its growth with respect to Indian animation up till now?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's like a huge opportunity here, like a really, really big opportunity. And I don't think that they haven't created a place for animated content.
I think it's Indian animation content.
Maybe you're talking about Indian animation, but see, if it's happened abroad, it will happen here. There are a lot of shows, animated shows, which Netflix has, funded, like produced independent content. Uh, there are a lot. I mean,
So I think it's definitely a start. The thing is, we are kind of lag behind compared to the world animation industry by quite a bit, because we had our late head start, and we took our time to grow. And it also depends. Like obviously, Netflix is an OTT platform, but there are still people who are working. The people are still working from our kind of industry, our culture. Also, I would say, because initially, I mean, if you don't look at the OTT platform for a second, what happens is basically the people who are putting in money, those are people who are sort of more restrictive. They want to secure some assets, so they are not looking at it creatively. They are not looking at, like, I want to go all in and kind of just create something good. They are looking at it in terms of return. So we had those kind of hurdles to come over, and that's why it has taken. We never actually invested enough money in creating that kind of work. A lot of research goes into it. We don't do that kind of research, and when one of the few times we do, it actually shows. So that has been a long challenge. Because of that, the overall growth has become slow. Like when you don't have enough opportunities, the artists will go somewhere else. So now, then I would say it's like kind of restarting. A lot of people are looking up to it. A lot of people are pitching. The already existing content is going on OTT platforms with a better quality. Like I think Chota Bheem is an example. They have definitely like improved on their the production quality. So it'll be definitely much more fun to watch. Like we can all appreciate it. So that's the kind of impact I think OTT platforms have, and they're looking for people. I would say, like they're looking at artists who can do it. But at the same time, when you're doing,
and I think like also like another, okay, giving Chota Bheem as an example, there are 2D animated content. Like I mean, it's known for not being good. So, but if you look at the 3D Netflix animation, it's like a miles better. And that's because Netflix also has a bar of, what is the minimum quality benchmark that they will be putting out. And why a company like Green Gold got a show on Netflix is mainly because of their team strength also. Like their team is huge and they've had these artists for like years. So I think that's why I think it can also, like he said, artists also get dispersed when they don't get the right opportunities. And we don't have any one studio which creates like original content full time. There are very few of those.
There are, but
they're very few. Yeah.
So I think it will happen. It's just starting. It's just a start for us, and you'll see a lot more. I think in future, in a couple of years.
Yeah.
Okay, so next question is from Rohan Rege, and he asks, how do you go about budgeting? How did you find out how much other people in the industry charge?
We learned it like with a lot of trial and error, to be honest, but that was kind of not very good idea on our part. You can actually just ask people how much they charge for it, and they will tell you.
That's the shortest way to
and this is like, and that's one of the reasons why it will be like you should definitely get in touch with people if you think, and if you have any question regarding like how much this costs or how much they charge, they'll like very easily tell you. It's not like a big secret. If it's a bigger project, there are like more components. So, but you'll still get a kind of rate. But there are the bigger studios have multiple components in it, and that's why it becomes more complex. But as far as your costing is concerned, I think you can just talk to people. We figured it out by trial and error. We undercharge in the beginning a lot. But yeah, I think gradually we found it. And to be honest, we are still not sure if you're charging right or not.
Yeah.
So you can never be sure, but you can always get a reference. And we are saying this because we have asked other people. We have asked our friends that what is the right kind of costing for it.
A lot of our friends, like a lot of other seniors in the industry, have even told us that you can charge as much as the client pays. Like, how vague is that? So, it's not like another thing I think works for us is and works for most studios is they have a proper sheet maintained to see the amount of resources who will be working on a given project, how many systems will be running, how much time in a month they would be utilizing for that project. So if I'm probably using 50% of studio time on a given project, I'll be using 50% of my studio running cost for that project. I'll include that in the budgeting. So I think these things are something you learn as you grow. So like bigger studios which have much more overheads, many more resources, and many more.
It's much more complex for them.
Yeah.
But you can basically that's how we go about it.
Yeah.
We have lately we have started more structurizing it. But like I said, like we were still not sure. We were not sure for a while. But you can always get a reference from any friend, I think.
Yeah.
And that's to answer like how did we find out how much other people charge? Basically, we asked other people, and anybody can do that. If you find the right people, they'll just tell you. I think that's. I hope that answers Rege.
Yes. So next question is from Pari, and she asks, would being a journalist make it harder to apply for the jobs you want, since your work in that specific field would be lesser than a specialist applying for the same job? And also, would it be harder to keep the job you have if you can be replaced easily?
That's actually true.
Yeah, that's true. Generalists are more easily replaceable because I can find someone else who does little of everything, but I can't find someone who's okay. Like, I'll give you an example. For us as Totem Creative, we haven't found good storyboard artists for a really long time. We are looking for good storyboard artists. If anyone wants to apply, please send your work.
But there are other challenges also for us, but
it's very difficult to find someone who does one thing really well, and it's easier to find someone who does. So yeah, in terms of you being replaced easily, that is.
It's actually so to answer it fairly. Would it be harder to apply for jobs you want? In India, you will get it relatively easily because, like I said, most studios are, as of now, dominantly working for advertising and marketing. So they have like a variety of work coming out, and you can see this. It's not something you can just check their website and you'll see the kind of the more versatile they are, the more kind of generalist as a studio they are, right? It's not just applies to individual. As a studio
Yes.
also,
Yes.
we are also in the, by the way, we are also in the same zone right now. To sustain, we have to take a variety of work. So we are a generalist, but we definitely want to move more into like, dedicated content, so we can improve the quality of work and do it full time. So you'll easily find work. But if you have a certain priority, if you want to do certain kind of work, that can be a little harder, especially if you have a very specific role in mind. That can be a little harder in India, right?
So next question is from Yash, and he says, "I'll start third year, and if I am sure to be in the 3D, irrespective of our college courses, wouldn't be it wiser to devote most of my time in practicing softwares surrounding 3D?"
I'm sure to be serious because what was the reason that the culture like he's saying should he spend most of his time already because he wants to be in 3D.
Okay, so
So
I'm just
you wanna
confused.
take that?
I'm just confused. The last line, it says, "As I have good skills in 2D."
Okay, just leave this line.
Okay.
Leave
Okay.
this line. Basically, he wants to pursue 3D and he's sure about that.
Right.
So even if you want to pursue 3D, you would have to be more specific about what in 3D, because you want to pursue modeling that's like a parallel to character animation in 2D. You would have to have a good understanding of volumes and shapes and anatomy and appeal. So, or if you want to pursue 3D character animation, you would still need all the basic fundamental skill sets of 2D character animation. Almost all the 3D animators in the industry right now have been trained in very well trained in 2D animation. So I think it would have to be more specific than that.
But if you're sure that you want to do 3D, it's obviously good to put in more effort in that. And that does not mean that you take out time from other stuff, because you have a certain constraint. You have to complete, your requirements of other courses, I'm sure. So you do that, and this extra mile you have to go on your own. See, as a animation filmmaking course, you are bound to be exposed to a lot of things. That is how it works. But that's why we are saying don't limit your assignments. You will have to put in extra hours, and I believe you have that time if you put in, right? And it'll help if you also narrow it down further what you want to do in 3D, because if you want to, again, where you want to work depends on that. If you want to work in bigger studios, they create, like, a modeler can create a model within like few hours, like a really good working model, where a generalist will take like at least 2 days. That kind of timeline will not work. So you'll have to be that good at it basically, and you'll have to practice it that much more.
And same with like other departments like lighting and VFX. Those departments require different kind of understanding and different fundamentals. So just be aware of that and try to spend more time doing those after your after your college hours. I hope that answers it.
Okay, so next question is from Akash. He asks, "What about starting off as a generalist, get hands-on experience on different parts of the craft, and then choose with more clarity what to specialize in?"
I think we've answered this question.
I think we've answered.
Yeah, I think
Yes, someone asked a similar question earlier.
I also asked that question.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll go on to next question. So next is from Malvika. When animation is being used to service the needs of the advertising and branding industry, how does the treatment of animation change as compared to the film industry?
Okay, so when you're saying, see, in advertisements, they, how practically it works, I'll just give you a simple example. How practically it works is basically, a lot of times the client will have a certain reference in their mind, right? They've seen something, they're coming at it from a competition. They either have some sort of competition which they've seen and they want to do something similar. It's very less, at least in our experience, in our limited experience, that they'll come to you and say that let's go crazy and create something that we have not seen, surprises type, right? So they always have a reference, and most likely you will work with it. Even if they don't have a physical reference to show you, they'll have some idea that, okay, we will try to go stop motion. But it's not always the case. If you're a if you're in a good position and if you creatively establish yourself, the client can come to you saying that this is the project, what are your thoughts? And then you will be in a position to recommend. First, you will probably go with a broad treatment. You can say, oh, this kind of story will be better told in stop motion. For certain different mediums have their own emotive kind of experiences. So you can say, oh, it will look good in stop motion. It can be a cutout animation. Why not we go like full hand-drawn 2D or a motion graphics, all that. So if once you agree on that, so the only difference is it has a very clear-cut limitation of working for the audience, which is a crucial part. Like if it's not serving the product, if your product is hardcore 3D, industrial product, and you're doing some kind of beautiful 2D animation for it, it might not work. So that's basically in a brief. You decide your treatment, and for what we do is basically we do some kind of research on our part. We have a certain idea of based on the brief, we share with the client, and they come back with saying that okay, this works, this doesn't work, or they share their thoughts, and mutually we decide. In film, a lot of times technical challenges can sometimes define a treatment, but at the same time, it's a very there's a lot more creative freedom, I would say, because people are most studios, most dedicated studios which are doing this kind of content, this kind of film, they're doing it for the passion, they're doing it for the storytelling, they're doing it for the fun of the medium. So
and their audience is also people who are not looking at buying something, they're looking at people who they want. Audience is someone who wants to enjoy a story, or they want to relate to a story, or someone who just wants to enjoy storytelling. So the audience is very different for ads and for animation.
Yeah, and I think one crucial thing which dictates your treatment is the cost factor.
Timelines and cost.
Yeah, timeline and cost. Because when you're working for an ad, you're working for a client. You might have something like amazing, something very beautiful, very decorative in mind, but neither they have time for it or the kind of money to spare. So you'll have to resort to something more simpler, less complex that you can, achieve in that time and budget. So that also dictates. Unlike films, again, films definitely it does have a budget and also a timeline, but more in a lot of cases it overshoots because there is also a creative satisfaction that people, a creative goal that they're going for.
And also the budgets and timelines are much more. I mean, they're not they're significantly more because the amount of resources and the amount of time it takes to create that content takes much more longer than ad filmmaking.
Yeah. But definitely, I think since we're not working for towards a goal like a brand, or not following any kind of guidelines, there is much more experimentation that you must have seen. Like now, you can see what different kind of films are coming out.
Studios.
In feature film and even 2D animation. Also, I mean, short films. You see a lot more experimentation there because purely from timeline and creative perspective, they get the freedom.
And if you do see like really different and nice treatment in ad filmmaking, it's a given that the studio must have taken out a lot more time or the client must have given them the liberty of higher timeline and higher cost, like a higher budgeting than clients usually would for a brand.
Okay, so next question is from Riaz Roy, and he asks, how much importance can we afford to give to learning lesser used techniques of animation and even experiment with the same, and creating our own medium during the course of a college education to go beyond what is taught so that we are at better and more confident place to animate in the way we want to?
Okay, I think let me just give it a read once.
Yes.
Yeah.
You take it, I take time to understand.
I think if I understand it correctly, Riyada, I think what he means is that how much importance should we give to the lesser used techniques of animation? So obviously, when just to put you in context, everyone to put in context, when we learn animation, we actually get introduced to different styles of animation, different techniques, and different treatments, which are also some of them are not used in mainstream animation, but they're still out there, and you see them once in a while. So if I get the question correctly, he's saying how much importance should we give to that, and especially if it can lead to some new kind of style of animation, which then you can use. So again, I wouldn't be a good judge for it. We wouldn't be saying that you should give less or more importance. At this point, for this particular thing, I would say it's personally your choice.
Yeah.
if you enjoy experimenting with medium, if you enjoy experimenting with not repeating your treatment, let's say not repeating the same technique, if you enjoy that, go for it. And but if you know that okay, for me, like this is what I want to do, then rather channelize that energy. This is completely a personal take, I would say.
Okay, so we have next question, and I think it's the last question, where it's by Pratham. He asks, Japan, where animated movies are considered as equal to traditional films, whereas in India it is generally catered to a younger audience. What are your thoughts on this? Is the industry changing?
Um, yeah, I mean it's definitely changing. It is we I don't know how much Indian content you've seen. So there's like a lot more mature content is coming out. Right now it's obviously at a more indie film level, but soon you'll see it in the mainstream animation. So you can also compare it to something like, for example, R-rated films. Like there used to be very few of them, but now it's being more normalized. You'll see a lot more, especially with the OTT platforms. Internet gives you much more, control over that censorship thing. So you can put out more unfiltered content, or I would say like originally in its original form, let's say. So that same kind of liberty is also applied here. One, thanks to the OTT platform, but overall in general, people are also trying.
I think it's also audiences now. Like audiences also being more open and looking forward to seeing more kinds of content, more types of stories. If you look at, I mean, even if you look at a Hindi cinema, it's also evolved a lot. Like in terms of even the content which is coming out, it is more like very mature content, a lot of independent content coming out without any kind of censorship. And I think that's going to happen in animation as well. In fact, we know someone who is working on a very violent 2D animated series right now, and so it is happening. It's just not out there yet. Like maybe
it will take
it's in
some time.
production. It will take time.
Even
But
like
it is in the making. I would
right,
say.
right. Although like I don't know, the audience is probably not the right. So what has happened? Like I think earlier also we discussed it. Initially, the whole sole control of projects was with producers. Let's say people who are not artists themselves. They are not in it for the art. They are in it. It's like somebody has the money and you need that, and they want to make more money, so they will go to them that I can make something that can benefit you, right? So they have kind of the sole power. They had the sole power, and they will only invest in something they can see the returns in. And it's very like why I'm saying it's not an audience thing is because our audience go to watch all kind of content which is coming from overseas, or the kind of film that you see, whether it's Spider-Verse or whether it's Pixar films. We have always been watching it. They do pretty good here. So it's like it's more from that. So but the now why it's shifting is because the OTT platforms, more creative people are in charge, either or you can say like people who have equal priority for the creative, like they like Netflix did with Chota Bheem. They took it
encouraging of creators taking creative control
Yeah.
rather than holding all the
Right.
decision making powers on what kind of content goes
Right.
out there.
So, for example, like Chota Bheem is a good example. When Netflix got it on board, Chota Bheem has already done like fantastic in terms of the profits and the business, right? They didn't have to put it, they didn't have to upgrade it. Let's say they could have easily made the same quality of film, but it's their choice to put in that extra money, saying that listen, we want to upgrade it. We will not have something on our platform which looks, below a certain standard. So that kind of mentality, I think, is good, and that's a positive sign. Let's say, and this shift will happen, I think, very very soon. I think that is the last question.
Yes, I don't think we have any more questions. So
Okay,
I
great,
think we'll wrap it up now.
Yeah.
And
fine.
yeah, so thank you guys for joining, and thank you Arvind and Nikita for coming here.
Thank
And
you.
Thanks for having us,
Yes.
Aniket. And I hope we covered
And thanks
most of
to
it.
everyone for listening in, and we hope we covered, and we hope this talk was helpful for you all.
Yeah, and since see, for at least for MIT, and this is an alumni initiative with college, so you can always reach out to your alumni. Like ask your peers, people who are in fourth year. You can ask them if you have any kind of query, because these kind of questions can happen, I think, once in a week. But you'll have more access to your current peers. So I think that's the kind of that will help you much more, basically. Yeah, I think.
Okay,
I think
yeah.
more questions,
So thank you guys for coming, and do
I
follow
think.
Totem Creative in all the social media platforms.
Aniket, I
And
think there's one more question.
there's a lot. Okay, yeah. So there's
I think.
another question. How do smaller studios survive competition from large, more established studios?
Um, right. We can. I think so. Since we are in that spot right now, our I don't know how you can do it. I'll just tell you our strategy. Our strategy is basically to just do like
Good work.
like really good work that larger studios can provide, but fortunately or unfortunately, they have not been doing that till now. So if we get a head start, we'll be able to grab some attention and make a place for ourselves. But definitely, like, larger studios have the kind of resources to put in place if they choose to. But I guess, like, they have not been doing it for a certain kind of mindset, and if that's the case, then they'll probably not do it for a while. I hope that was
Okay. So yeah.
okay.
Okay. Now I think I'll end it. I'll end the stream now. So yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
everyone says thank you. Yeah.
Thanks,
guys.
guys.
Yeah. Thank you guys for coming, and yeah, I'll end it.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Aniket.
thanks.
Bye.
Bye.